This is a story about Jeremy. Jeremy was a guy who had it all. Great job, bills paid every month, and a beautiful wife. He had spent 10 years with his wife. She had beautiful red hair, the perfect amount of freckles on her face, and that down-home next-door girl, country look that he loved. She always strives to make him happy, and he always strived to make her happy as well. One of our favorite things to do was to take our mini camper on a road trip. We would go anywhere. Never having to pay for a hotel usually meant we could spend more money having fun wherever we were. In recent years, things had started to slowly change. She went from wearing the sexiest outfits to always wearing something that she considered to be more comfortable for her. He always wanted her to be comfortable, but why all of a sudden the change now? I've grown accustomed to always looking at my wife and thinking that she was the most sexiest woman in the world, but it's hard to do that now when she's only wearing baggy flannel pants and t-shirts that say "Live your best life, queen." This was not the only problem. Their sex life had dwindled down to almost nothing. He talked to her a few times about it, but it was always the same excuse. I'm not in the mood, or somehow it was my fault. He wasn't romancing her enough or tending to her needs enough. But that simply wasn't true. He always told her how beautiful he thought she was. He always strived to take her on a date at least once every 2 weeks. He offered massages, time to herself, and once he even offered to take her to an adult store to try to spice things up. It just wasn't enough. After a year of this, he started to suspect that their intimacy time for their marriage was gone. This was killing him mentally. He couldn't focus at work. Every woman that walked by was all of a sudden more attractive than what she was previously 6 months ago. The thoughts of stepping out on his wife became more frequent, but he would never do that. He wanted to fix this part of their marriage, but he just didn't know how. How could a woman who wanted sex 3 times a week now go to wanting sex 0 times a week? It didn't make sense, and he wanted answers. He started researching a popular posting site, and it opened his eyes to the possibility of infidelity. He didn't want to believe his wife was capable of this, but after reading so many stories of husbands being blindsided, he thought, how could it get worse than what it already is? They had always had an open phone policy, and one day he needed a receipt for tires that he purchased for her this year. The tire kept getting a flat, and we had a warranty on it but needed the receipt to use the warranty. She had an application on her phone that kept it up with every receipt for our household. It was annoying at times that she was so diligent with this, but it did come in useful for times like this. That morning, he grabbed her phone while she was still asleep to obtain the receipt, but noticed a notification of something that disturbed him. Oh my God. Jeremy was looking at the video clip he had found on his wife's mobile. It was one of 4 each showing sexual activity. In fact, it looked to be the same body parts each time, and it certainly was not his. But why was it there? Whose parts were they? Sending copies to his phone before cloning her phone with his, he had decided to wait. He would investigate further to see if there was any more evidence to substantiate his current thoughts. He was unsure how his wife looked in the positions viewed on the clips. Was it her? It just seemed strange for her to have clips like this. They had never recorded any sexual activity in the years that they have been married. So yes, his suspicions were very much aroused, and he would now pay more attention to her activities. Let's now hear from Jeremy's perspective. I bought miniature cameras and phone bugs for the 3 phones we had. Quite costly but discounted, as he went through an old friend who was a private investigator, so hopefully worth it. He had offered to investigate, but I declined as I did not want her professionally investigated at this time. The cameras were deployed, a picture frame to replace the one I purposely broke, a hidden camera with remote facilities including Zoom, a clock for the living room with a face of us on their wedding day to go on the wall with a similar camera installed, and a bedside clock with LED display, a camera for ceiling viewing, and a decorated shaving mirror for the bathroom. Finally, a USB hub for the center console in her car with camera to complete Phase 1 of the plan of action. With Phase 2, I became more attentive to her hobbies and girl nights out, which varied in occurrences. I planned to follow her on my motorbike, leaving a 5-minute gap so as not to arouse any suspicions. I also asked more questions, not too heavy, but by way of extending the conversations beyond my usual nod. Transferring the video clips from my phone to his computer, I was able to use tools to try and enhance the action and hopefully get an idea of the location. In addition to my plans and ideas, I decided to tell her that I had to spend 3 nights away for work. I was thinking if anything was going on, this would be an ideal opportunity to evaluate this theory. With my car packed, which included my laptop and the ancillary equipment needed to view and record from the secret cameras, I set off. My journey was 2 miles to a friend's house. They were away on a 3-week holiday. Putting my car in their garage, I soon set myself up in their large kitchen to see what, if anything, would happen. I felt strange, sort of uneasy. I sat in front of all these little screens on his laptop, unsure on what to do should my worst fears become a reality. My earlier life was in the military, as an office manager with the military police. I had handled hundreds of similar cases with stakeouts. This experience gave him the necessary background to carry out his current mission. My phone had pinged a few times and women's names had appeared. I moved them into a general folder to run through later. 3 phone calls had happened, 2 were for him, and 1 was for her from the woman next door, then a text from Julie asking her to call urgently. The auto recorder clicked on as she dialed the number. "Hello, this is Julie." Well, it was a man's voice. "Hello, Julie," my wife replied. "Did you get my text I sent earlier?" "Of course," was the reply. "It sounded urgent. That is why I texted you back." "What is up?" he asked. "Jeremy's away," she said. "For 2 nights. Are you interested?" "Of course," was the reply. I was watching the video clips and heard him say, "I am so horny." My wife replied, "Then why don't you come over and I will rectify your problem?" I felt gutted, but she went on. "You better use your work van to stop any nosy inquiries," she added. "Okay, see you soon." Then they hung up. I was at an all-time low, not sure what to think seeing those clips. Hearing the conversation was like a kick in the stomach by a mule. The bedroom camera started to record her as she got out a handbag from her wardrobe, and it was a see-through negligee with the scanniest of thongs that I have ever seen. She had never ever worn clothing like this for me. Then the bathroom camera saw her turn on the shower. I saw my wife naked, a sight I had not seen for weeks. A quick shower, then dressing and preening in this skimpy wear. The outdoor camera showed this electrician's van pull up and Julie climb out. He got a small toolkit from the back and walked to the front door. Fortunately, my house surveillance cameras, which had been in place since we first moved in, were still intact and working. She did not know this fact as all the recordings went to a file in the cloud account. I cleared it each month. I had checked this first and had never seen this man or his van at our house before. They were embracing in the hallway. I could just make out his voice, and he was saying how sexy she looked. Grabbing his hand, she led him upstairs into our bedroom, and within 2 minutes they were heavily petting on the bed. The camera I had on the table and on the wall gave me excellent views. She was soon doing acts with him that she had never done with me. She had always said it was disgusting. It would seem the opposite now. He reciprocated. She was in total ecstasy. She cried out and screamed, with such an intensity one have never seen before. Her gasps and cries of pleasure as he had his way with her. I sat with open mouth in total shock. Here was my wife cheating for what seemed like a long time. I just did not know. They both finished together. She was saying how nice it felt, so hot, to be bred by him. I had to walk away. I could not get the images out of my head. I could still hear them banging each other senseless. Each cry of pleasure was a stabbing at my heart. I decided to call her, and as the phone rang, he told her to ignore it, but she insisted to answer and for him to be patient. Her voice came on and I said, "Hi, how are you?" She said, "Fine." I replied she sounded a bit out of breath. Lying, she replied that she had to come in from outside. With the remote, I muted the laptop so as to avoid any feedback. I said, "What are you up to?" As I looked at her in the bedroom, I saw him start to push into her. She gasped and I said, "What's up?" She said, lying again, that she was nearly sick. I could see her struggling to keep a steady voice. As she talked, he was gently pushing into her as she spoke to me. I knew our relationship was over, but I was starting to get annoyed and said I had to go. I said I love you to her. Her reply was, "You too," and she hung up. You saw her chastise him. She said, "Don't do that in the future." He said, "What?" He left after about 3 hours. She said that he could use the back gate and park in the next street over to avoid too many questions. They had arranged for a lunchtime meetup after he left. She went for a long soak in the bath. Soon the phone rang. It was Sandra, an old friend and a frequent night-out companion. The call was highly informative. Julie was the local gigolo. All the ladies in the small circle used him, and I could see why now more clearly. My suspicions confirmed. I spoke to my investigator friend and gave him the go-ahead to do his stuff. With the evidence I had gathered, he said he would add some more and then give all the details of his investigation to me. A week should be long enough. D-Day was here. My wife would not be expecting the evidence I had presented to me. I brought her into the room and asked her to have a seat. I then asked her if she had ever cheated. She of course said no. I then threw a manila folder on the coffee table and told her to look at it. She looked through the folder and started to tear up. She was totally surprised at the amount of damning evidence I had collected. Not only were there pictures, but transcripts of the explicit things they said. I had it listed out just like a movie script. I had on picture saved for her. The picture of her with her lover while she was on the phone with me. She was devastated. I told her we were finished and our marriage was well and truly over, and she should leave the house the following day. She did all the standard excuses. Cried and begged for forgiveness. Said she would never do it again. Told me she would go to counseling. Offered me a one-sided open relationship. Told me I could have her any way I want, anytime I want. Too little too late, I said. Her pleading and pathetic apologies did not work. She had betrayed our marriage beyond recovery. The trust one had in her was totally shattered. I got up and walked away with my final words to her to be happy with Julie. She must have stayed on the floor crying for 2 hours. I almost felt bad for her. I went into my man cave, put on some headphones, and started to plan out my divorce. I didn't stop until midnight. When I took off the headphones and opened the door to get something to eat, she was sitting outside of the door. She told me she had knocked on the door and wanted to talk. I ignored her, made a turkey sandwich, and went back into the room and went to sleep. I got up the next day and she was gone. I had her served with divorce papers and am now on the way to being a single man again. I will never trust another woman again. It's time to focus on me and only me. That's the end of my story. I hope everyone enjoyed. Please take the time to subscribe to the channel. It's a small thing for you, but means so much to the TDG team. Thank you.